everybody, welcome to the Lord of the Reads. So, it is currently freezing outside. It's below freezing. It's extremely cold. So there are a few heaters going on. That's what the noise is. Yes, I've also cracked my lip from smiling. So, there are a few things to take note of. But, now we can begin. So, I've seen this idea floating around that I thought I knew I wanted to give a try. And that is the if you like this book, then you will like this book video. I really enjoy watching these because I like getting recommendations for books, especially based on books that I liked. So, this is a fun idea, and, you know, it's always nice to stay inside and get book recommendations instead of, you know, freezing outside. So, I figured this was a good time to do it. So, yes. So, we can go ahead and get started. The first set is, if you liked The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, then you will like The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I had to include The Lord of the Rings on this list. I did not have a choice. It was obvious that I was going to. It's my favorite book. It was going to make it on this list somehow. So, The Chronicles of Narnia, actually, it's kind of hard to explain the entire series, but pretty much it's about this world called Narnia, and it's a parallel world to this world, and people can go to it. And so some people have went to it and had adventures, and that's what the entire series is about, is all these different adventures that have happened in Narnia. The Lord of the Rings, this is, I mean, I'm sure that you probably know what this is about, but I'll explain it anyway. So it's about this world where there's magical creatures, there are elves, there are all kinds of different wizards, witches, things like that. Whole enchanted world, and there is a ring that everyone thinks, or everyone knows, that if someone gets a hold of, they will destroy the world. So they have to try to keep that ring and use it, or they have to destroy it. And that's what the book's about, that journey of either destroying the ring or keeping it. There are many reasons why I think that you would like both of these if you liked the other one. First thing is that J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were writers at the same time and were in the same writing club when they wrote these. So they have very similar themes of, like, a very distinct line of good and evil and magical creatures and beautiful writing. And those are just a few of the reasons why I think if you liked The Chronicles of Narnia, you would like The Lord of the Rings. Next, if you liked The Hunger Game by Suzanne Collins. I mean, who doesn't like The Hunger Games? But if you liked The Hunger Games, you will like The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. These books they're within the same genre. They're both YA dystopian. Some of these books are not in the same genre at all, and I think there's only one crossover between, like, YA and middle grade. The rest are all the same, I'm pretty sure. But I did cross over genre, because I'm basing them more off the tone of the book and certain elements that happen in the book. So some of these will be crossover genres. These two are the same, though. These are YA dystopian. The Hunger Games is about this girl named Katniss who volunteers so that her sister doesn't have to in the Hunger Games, where 2 children from each district have to go and fight to the death until there's only one remaining. And The Knife of Never Letting Go is about this world where there was a germ that killed off all the women, and men can hear each other's thoughts. And it follows this boy who is just about to become a man in this world. And these actually have very similar tones, which is why I put them on this list. They both have this kind of dark tone, almost, and the characters and the world are very similar. With some dystopians, it's hard to tell, like, that there are bad things going on in the world, but in both these, the places where the main characters lives, they're very similar environments. They can tell they're evil, and the characters within the two worlds think almost the same thing about their worlds. There are also lots of plot twists. This is one of the kind of books where they build you up to something and then knock it down real quick with something else. So, definitely very similar books as far as tone, and both books that I loved. So, if you like The Hunger Games, try picking up The Knife of Neverland and go. Next, if you liked Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan, then you will like City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. These have very similar elements. The Lightning Thief is about a boy who has ADHD and dyslexia, and he's going through school, and he finds out that he is the son of a god. Super interesting idea. One of my favorite books. City of Bones is about this girl who's living with her mother, and all of a sudden she finds out that there are demons and angels and fairies and shadow hunters that have to hunt down the demons, and that she may or may not be one of them. So both of these books have the very similar element of the main character who's just living their life with all these issues, all these problems that they're facing within society, and they find out that there's a new world that they didn't know about, and they're thrust into it because of something. That's something that I love in books, when a character is made to believe something, and then their ideas are completely blown out of the water. So, this is very similar comparison, just because of that similar element of them having to grow into this new role in this new world that they didn't know existed, which is something that I really enjoy in books. So, if you liked The Lightning Thief, then try checking out City of Bones. Next, if you liked Mr. Lemoncello's Library by Chris Gravenstein, then you will like Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This one is a bit of a stretch as far as comparing. This is a middle grade, kind of adventure-y, a very fun, lighthearted middle grade. And Cinder is a YA, sci-fi, dystopian, fantasy, cyborg, all that type of thing. So they're very different as far as what kind of book it is, but they have one similar element that I love in books, and it was one of the reasons why I liked both these books, so I'd say it's a pretty fair comparison. Mr. Lemoncello's Library is about Mr. Lemoncello, who builds a wacky library in this town, and all the children love it. And he has all kinds of games and stuff, and he hosts huge events, and he hosts one where the children have to escape his library. A super fun, wacky idea. The characters are so wacky and quirky. It's absolutely amazing. Cinder is a little bit darker tones. It's about this girl named Cinder who is a cyborg and a mechanic. And it's a Cinderella retelling with a very large twist. So, this is after a major war that wiped out most of the Earth. So she lives in New Beijing, where Beijing was and had been rebuilt. And the prince of New Beijing comes and asks her to fix something, and she gets swept into this large plot. The reason that I would recommend these together, there was a similar element that I love reading about, and that is people with different abilities coming together in a team setting and using those abilities for the good of the team and for a common goal. This is definitely one of those books in the Mr. Lemoncello series. You have all the children, and they had the opportunity to team up when they did these events. And in the team, you had all these different skills. Some people were better at games, some people were better at riddles, and there were all kinds of different skills that everyone had. And they all brought those different skills together for the good of the team and the main goal. And same thing in Cinder. It's less prevalent in Cinder and more in the future books, but as Cinder starts to meet people, all those people have all these different abilities, and they use them for the good of their common goal. So I'd say they're pretty fair comparisons, even though they're a little bit of different types of books. They have that same thing. So if you like the Mr. Lemoncello series, then try Cinder. Next, if you liked To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, then you will like A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. These are both classic novels, and I did want to include some classics on this list. To Kill a Mockingbird is about this girl who lives with her family, and she has to... It's pretty much just about her growing up with all these different things that are going on within her life. Her father's a lawyer, and he takes on this big case that no one thinks that he can win, and he's doing it for honor and not for the money, which is something that the girl finds different from all the other lawyers. And it's kind of about her going through this and how she grows within it and things like that. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn is about this girl and her family lives... This is based in, I want to say, the 1920s. It might be later, though. But pretty much she's growing up with her family, and they're extremely poor. Their father is a drunkard and can't hold a job, so it's about her growing through that and all kinds of hardships. And I think that's why these books are so similar, is because there's pretty much no plot per se. The books span a great number of years, and the book is all about just them growing up. There's no, like, main events. There are so many different climaxes and all kinds of different things that you see as they're growing up instead of a set plot and climax. So that was one of the reasons that I really enjoyed this. And both of these books are actually some of my favorites. So if you like To Kill a Mockingbird, then check out A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. Next, if you liked Guardians of Ga'Hoole by Catherine Lasky, then you will like Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. I love both these books. These were books that I read years ago, and I love them. Guardians of Ga'Hoole is set in a world of all animals, and it's about this owl who tries to fly too early and falls. And he is swept away into this really bad place with other owls, and he has to try to get away from that and go out on his own and find friends to help him. Series of Unfortunate Events is about this group of children who their parents die in a fire that burned down their house. So the person in charge of their affairs takes them to live with this man that is very bad, and they have to try to get away from him and escape him and survive on their own because no one's going to help them. These are very similar and very similar tones. They both deal with orphans that are trying to escape from bad situations and find people that will help them, even though it's fruitless, but trying to find people that will help them and help them escape more bad situations, pretty much. So they're very similar in that aspect, and that was one of the reasons why I love them. Seeing people that were kind of on their own and had to escape all these bad situations. So they're very similar as far as tone and different aspects that happen in the book. So if you like The Guardian of the Cool, try A Series of Unfortunate Events. Next, if you liked The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson, then you will like Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dow. Well, let's start with this one. The House with Chicken Legs is about this girl who lives in a Yaga's house. So this house has chicken legs and it walks around, and her job, or her grandmother's job, or what will be her job, is to guide the dead to the world of the dead where they can find their resting place. And she does not want that job, but her grandmother wants her to have it. And then Forest of a Thousand Lanterns is about this girl who thinks that it is her destiny to become empress, and she sets out to pretty much become empress by whatever means she has to. And these both have similar elements of destiny, even though they're taken in the exact opposite of ways. In The House with Chicken Legs, she always talks about how she wants to change her destiny and she doesn't want it. While the other one, Forest of a Thousand Lanterns, she thinks that it's her destiny to do a certain thing, so she's going to create that destiny no matter what. So it's pretty much the exact opposites of she doesn't want her destiny and wants to get rid of it, and the other girl wants a destiny and wants to create it. Also, another aspect of these books that was similar is in both of them, the main characters, especially in the House with Chicken Legs, she does things that aren't right, and she has to try to fix those problems and work around them and stuff like that. And in the Forest of a Thousand Lanterns, the main character is very morally gray. You don't really know whether you should count her as a good or a bad person because of the things that she does. So that's one thing that's similar, is they both have to work around all these things that they're doing wrong, and they have to make the decision of whether they're going to continue or whether they're going to do the right thing and fix those problems. So, very similar in that aspect. So, if you liked The House with Chicken Legs, then check out Forest of a Thousand Lanterns. Next, if you liked The False Prince by Jennifer A. Nielsen, then you will like Scythe by Neil Shusterman. Both of these books are some of my favorites. They were both on my favorites list of 2020. And they were absolutely amazing. The False Prince is about this big plot. So you follow a boy named Sage, and this man named Connor comes and takes him from the orphanage, and he's went around getting many boys from orphanages, and his goal is to take one of these boys and make everyone believe that they are the long-lost prince so that they can have the throne, or he can have the throne through them. And it was an amazing book. Scythe, which I just finished the series recently. Scythe is about this world. It's our world, but in the future, and the internet has turned into the Thunderhead, and it's gained artificial intelligence, and it runs the world to perfection. Because of the Thunderhead, there is so much electronics that there is no death. Everyone can heal, everything can heal itself, and no one can die of natural causes. And because of this, the population has grown, and the population has to keep itself down. So, these people called Scythes created kind of a self-governed position where they would go and kill people periodically. And a rule was made between the Scythes and the Thunderhead where neither of them could or the Thunderhead couldn't interfere in Scythe business. So they are free to kill people periodically to keep the population down. And as you can probably tell, that gets into many issues. But I think one of the main reasons that these books are really similar is that both of these books are the kind of books that will take you through the entire book thinking that one thing is true and then knock it down. In the first book, or in The False Prince, you're taken along the entire book believing that something is true until the very end when they tell you that it isn't true. And the same thing with the Scythe is they take you through and something happens and everyone thinks something. And then you find out that that wasn't actually the case. So, I love books that do that, that keep the reader guessing along with the characters. So, definitely a good comparison, and both books that I absolutely love. So, if you liked The False Prince, then check out Scythe. Next, if you liked Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, then you will like Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan. Shadow and Bone follows this girl, and she lives in this country, and of course that country has to trade with other countries. But in order for her to trade with other countries, she has to go through this place called the Fold, where there's perpetual darkness and evil things live inside. But she is set on a trading ship to go through to trade with other countries, and she goes on this voyage with a group of people to go there. And they get attacked. And something happens, and everyone thinks that she has this special ability, because in this world, certain people can bend certain elements, so certain people can use fire, water, electricity. They can control those elements. But something happens, and they think that she has an ability that's never been had before, or hasn't been had for a long time. And she's whisked away to the palace to be taught to use this power. Trials of Apollo is about the god Apollo, and because of something that happened in the previous series, he is stripped of his godlyhood and sent to complete an adventure with mortals so that he can have his godlyhood restored. And he has to meet people, and he has to try to complete this adventure with mortals. So, definitely both interesting books. And the reason I compare them, they have a similar aspect that was taken in the exact opposite. So you have Shadow and Bone, where you have a commoner, the lowest social class, a very poor person, and she's whisked away to the palace, where she has to integrate herself with people that are royal and of the highest class in the world. So she has to integrate herself with them. Trials of Apollo is the exact opposite. He's a god, and he has to integrate himself with a lower social class, being mortals. And he has to try to integrate himself into that so that he can complete his adventures. And in both of these stories, the main characters have a lot of trouble adapting because they were raised in a social class that was opposite of what they have to interact with. And that's one of the reasons that it was interesting, is seeing how they did that, how they integrated themselves in that new social class while trying to complete these tasks and these adventures. So definitely both interesting books. So if you enjoyed Shadow and Bone, then try The Trials of Apollo. And last, if you liked The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, then you will like Little Britches by Ralph Moody. So these books have very similar tones, extremely similar. The Grapes of Wrath is about this man, and he lives with his family, and this is during the Great Depression. And they don't have money, and their land's going to be taken from them, so they have to go find somewhere else to live, and they have to find somewhere to work. So they set off they pack up everything they have and they set off to try to find work, and all kinds of hardships, all kinds of things happen to them that would prevent them from doing this, but they keep going till they find somewhere to be. Little Britches is about this family, and it's from the perspective of a young boy, and his family doesn't have a lot of money, and they go live in this new place. It's more wilderness than the city that they grew up in. So they have to try to survive on the little bit of money that they have, and to make money and survive in that wilder place than they're used to. And that book also, there's all kinds of hardships and all kinds of things that would prevent these characters from branching out and doing the things that they want to do. And that's one of the reasons that they're very similar, is that they both deal with having to go somewhere so that you can survive better, and trudging through all kinds of hardships to get to a place where things are stable. And the tones of these books are very similar. All the hardship and the trouble and everything that happens to these characters, very similar tones and very similar things happen to them, which is why they're so similar. So, if you liked The Grapes of Wrath, then try Little Britches. Well, that was my list of, if you like this book, then you will like this book. So, I hope you walked away from this with some good recommendations. But I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below if you plan on reading any of these, and if you have read any of these. And with that, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!